I was born in Madrid, Spain, and I moved here when I was 7 years old. My parents immigrated from Switzerland here to Canada. We ended up moving to Calgary, Alberta, and that is where I spent my youth. From the time I was very little, been raised with a lot of Spanish values, the Spanish foods, Spanish music, so that has always been a part of me. In the 70s, my parents opened a store in Calgary that was called the Gallery of Spain, and they started importing all kinds of Spanish art, handicrafts and goods, and one of the things that they imported were Spanish guitars. And so we started getting Spanish guitars into the house. At one point, my dad brought 2 of the guitars home, and he taught himself how to play guitar, and he gave us all guitar lessons. My father was a painter as well as being an architect, and he was always painting. So when we were kids, instead of just getting your regular toys, which we did get some regular toys, most of the time he would bring home art supplies, and they would be like watercolors, crayons, all kinds of paints, watercolor paper. But I grew up more than with music. I grew up with visual arts, but I always watched my dad paint to music. So the music was always there in the mix. I grew up encouraged to be an artist by my family. It was always very important to be always doing something creative. And it was obvious in my family that the pursuit of artistic endeavors was considered a priority. When I was 18, my parents gave me a choice of taking a year off, and I went to work at the Bank of Montreal because my dad thought it was, banking was like a legitimate good job. And I learned a lot about credit and money and everything like that, but I hated the job. And I basically ran to art college after that because my parents said I could go to art college and they would encourage that and support it. I went to the Alberta College of Art and I studied illustration, art, and design, and had a huge career in illustration, was very, very successful. I illustrated with my husband at the time, over 16 children's books, many, many young adult book covers. I can't tell you how many commercial clients we had, and that's how I made my living for a very long time. I often think of my songs as oral representations of my painting. The illustration career started changing because the digital world started becoming a lot more prevalent, which I did retrain and did some digital work, but that's not where my heart really was lying. I felt like I was more of a painter and I like to do things by hand. At that point in my life, my dad had been diagnosed with a brain tumor and given 2 months to live. I was very close to my father, and I feel like it was a wake-up call to me to really explore who I wanted to be as an artist, and that included going back to my music. It was a really important time in my life, and I had to have a lot of courage to go out because, I didn't know whether it was too late for me to just start pursuing a music career, after raising 3 kids. But I went for it. I started going to open stages, started writing songs, and it just sort of all came together almost on its own, which is why I feel like it was meant to be. I focus a lot on the lyrics. They're very important to me. I write the lyrics first most of the time. I just write from the heart, and my songs are heartfelt, and they're always a real life event behind my songs. I write about my life, and I write about my relationships, and I write about what I learn every day, and that's what gives me the inspiration.
Hilton Head is gorgeous this time of year. Why don't you come and meet me here?
My recent show at the Jazz Bistro was pretty wonderful. I was able to bring in a bass player from India. I spent 5 months in India earlier in the year, and we brought him to Canada and were able to do some wonderful performances in which we sort of combined the Indian rhythms with my own Latin rhythms. the first songs that I wrote that I performed at the Jazz Bistro is Mi Amor. It was the first song that I wrote in Spanish and was just sort of testing the waters as to whether I could express myself poetically.
Mi amor, te doy mi corazón y lágrimas que caen en el alma riegan nuestra flor.
It's interesting how, when I was young, I tried to get away from the whole Spanish thing and just be really Canadian. And now I've come back to my roots and I'm really embracing the fact that I am both.
Queriendo seguir a tu lado bajo estrellas, flotando en tu mar. Y a pesar de pasar los años, el tiempo sigue congelado.
When I did my second album, Un Solo Beso, I really kind of came back to my roots and my Spanish background and started writing in Spanish. And I have a lot of Spanish songs that I'm even writing now.
Y lágrimas que caen en el alma riegan nuestra flor.
Feel that there are so many cultures here in Canada that we can sort of draw upon to enrich all of our lives. Our musical fabric is incredibly rich, and I feel that we have to share it, and we have to enjoy it, and we have to support it. Jazz FM 91 presents the One-Stop Vocal Jazz Safari, hosted and curated by James B. We're going to be showcasing 24 My radio show, Cafe Latino, is really an outpouring of who I am. It is a reflection of my own personality and my musical taste that I always hope will connect. I only ever play what really moves me, and I use that as my guide. It's my heart that reacts to this music, and I always know that if I feel something with this music that someone else will too. Called Páginas de la Vida. This is Antonio Carlos Jobim's Wave, and the special guest vocalist on this track was Danielle Jobim's young aunt, Maria Luisa. I'll tell you, I have so many people that happen upon my radio show. They tell me, you sound so excited about the music and you're telling us a little bit about the artists. So, I'm introducing and teaching people about things. That was Gina Martinez here on Jazz FM 91 on this beautiful Saturday afternoon, broadcasting live. I feel that here from Liberty Village. The more I get to know people from different cultures, the more my own music changes, my writing changes, because you're inspired by all kinds of different cultures and communities and experiences sometimes that other people have. Canada is a great place to be based for doing international type of music, for sure. Canadian artists to me are some of the most wonderful, expressive, heartfelt people that I've ever met. And it's because we're so open to everything here. We are raised with the idea that the world is an important place and that everyone and everyone's differences should be accepted and appreciated and celebrated. And I think that that's why I'm very proud that I am a Canadian artist.